He looks like a hobo stolen a helicopter.
This is horrible. I don't like any of this. I'd like to leave.
We don't need running Twitter people. Moving on.
Welcome to the second episode of the Grey Hats podcast. I didn't think we'd get to the second episode, but here we are a month later.
Why did you think we wouldn't?
I don't know, because I always give up on things that I'm trying.
With such a good start, I'm surprised we even got to the first podcast.
That's true. So for those listening, I'm Jay.
I'm Saskia.
I'm Jose.
I'm the artist formerly known as March.
And I'm Harriet.
Cool. And yeah, with the Grey Hats, at least for the next hour and a half, we hope. Last time went a little bit over, but I think that was okay. So, Saskia's laughing about something. Not entirely sure what.
I think she's just cringing at your hosting capabilities.
Well, I'm getting better.
I get it, man. The host's job is underrated.
It is.
Everybody thinks they can do it, and then they don't.
Yeah, and again, second time, I'm going to get better and better every single time we do it.
Yeah, it's not going to be hard though.
Oh.
So, everyone had a good week?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm a bit tired of lockdown now, but I guess not much we can do about that. Well, I guess what we can do is talk about fun security things. That was a good segue, Jose. Admit it.
It's the first of many. I'm excited for the rest.
Of course. It was the best segue.
Yeah. I think the thing that kind of stands out to me this week is the Trump thing. I kind of hate the fact that everything seems to be about Trump, but I guess people saw the 197 IQ that he said that a hacker needs to have.
And 15% of your password.
Yeah, I know.
But then he referred to hackers as being he's, because we all know that you need a penis to hack.
He did say hackers are he's. And then, of course, a few days later, he got hacked because someone guessed his password.
It was the same person who guessed his password about 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It was more than 3. It was 4 years ago, or maybe
4 years
5.
ago, sorry.
Yeah.
It's a Dutch security researcher who actually works for the government. But is it really responsible disclosure going into somebody's account and
Good question.
and then guessing their password and then putting a tweet up for the Dutch version?
I didn't know
of the
that.
Onion?
So it's a security researcher that works for the government. Which government? The US?
The Dutch government.
Dutch government. So the Dutch government just hacked the US president's Twitter accounts.
Effectively.
Yeah.
My understanding is the responsible disclosure was the researcher, one assumes panicked, but the researcher used his links to the Dutch government to try and disclose to the US government to say that there was no 2FA and it was really easy to get in because the password was risibly bad. It was MAGA 2020 ! But the previous one from 4 years ago was "You've been fired" or "You're fired."
You're fired. You're
Yeah.
fired. All one word, all lowercase.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, actually, because in 2016, I would have thought that Twitter's password policy would have prevented that, you know?
What is their password policy?
I think it needs a capital.
Yeah, you're supposed to have 2FA if you're a blue tick, which is leading people to believe that there's additional security elements to Trump's
Account.
account. Because
There are.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was.
There are, because something happened a while back, and that was confirmed.
Could it be that 2FA was disabled because
he
of the
might
whole
have
COVID thing?
He might have disabled it because he didn't know.
How's COVID related to 2FA?
So he got COVID, wanted other people to be able to tweet for him, disabled
okay.
2FA.
I
I'm
know
just
people
trying
have
to...
been tweeting for him for a while.
So maybe that's why 2FA is disabled, because it seems,
Yeah, I would imagine so.
ridiculous, right? But yeah, like this, it's a good question about ethics, and this is something we spoke about ethics last time, but this is not something we really discussed. But is it ethical hacking if you're just logging into someone's account, like if you're brute forcing their password?
Well, they didn't brute force their passwords. I mean,
Well, he tried a few.
You need to give the guy some credit.
He tried a few passwords. That's brute forcing.
Well, okay. I'm not gonna get into the technical terms here, but I mean, if he tried a few, there would be a lockout.
He tried 5, apparently. I'm
Yeah,
surprised
thought
he got past the lockout there, because I thought the lockout was 3.
Yeah,
Twitter.
that's
Well,
what
he
I thought.
thought
as
that
well.
the 5th was the lockout, but then it actually let him in, apparently.
Okay.
So he thought he'd been booted out on the 5th one, but actually it let him in, and he was quite surprised, which is what leads me to say perhaps he kind of shat himself a little bit.
I would
weren't
leave
expecting
I
to
would
go
leave the
in-
country. if I accidentally logged into Trump's Twitter account, I would pack a bag and I would leave. I wouldn't like tell people and get my company to disclose it or something.
He contacted a lot of people about it as well. I mean, the official people, but still, he told everyone they got in.
That's the guy's braver than I am.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know whether it's right to look for weak accounts. I guess on the argument is that, you know, if he does it, someone else could have, and someone else could have done a lot more damage had they logged in. So,
But he actually tweeted as well, right?
he apparently so he tweeted.
No, he says he didn't do that, but there's no evidence one way or the other. So what's interesting is he's quite famous. He's one of the 3 grumpy hackers from the Netherlands.
I don't know what those are.
It's like 3 hackers who are presumably old
Grumpy?
and have been in the industry a long time, so are quite jaded. And by old, I mean over 30. At which point we're all jaded, apart from Chipie, who's still 29, bitch. But yeah, so apparently, if they've sort of been in Twitter accounts before that were quite insecure, they check on them sporadically or periodically to see if their security's improved. And for some reason, they decided this time that they would do Trump and the security.
Yeah, but I mean,
improved.
logging in and then tweeting is not really just checking if it's secure.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, how didn't Twitter, detect this? I mean, even if the lockout is typically 5 attempts, I mean, how are they not checking? Someone in the Netherlands just failed to log in 4 times as Trump. I mean, how's that not a red flag?
So yeah, that's what people are asking. So some people are saying that that it didn't really happen, and Twitter haven't confirmed it has happened. So there is something going on.
Yeah,
there.
some people said that the screenshots could have been photoshopped, and because there was screenshots evidence, the evidence was screenshots.
Yeah.
A few years ago, one of the Twitter employees deactivated Trump's account from the admin panel, the Twitter admin panel. And Twitter did definitely put new security features in place for Trump's account, which does make that more suspicious as a result.
Yeah, maybe they changed something for a short period and it just happened to coincide with when these guys tried to log in. I mean, I guess somebody has to log in, right? There's probably people trying passwords against Trump's account all the time.
Like daily.
Yeah,
exactly.
so
yeah, it's not
it's
hourly.
going to work
which
eventually.
takes me to my follow-up question, which was, I mean, how is he using that password? I mean, how does he not have like
how has no one else guessed that beforehand?
Personal cybersecurity experts, assistants all the time with everything?
He probably does have those, but
he is Rudy Giuliani.
Well, fuck Giuliani.
Giuliani has a cybersecurity company, Jose. He's one of the best cybersecurity experts in the world, don't you know?
Yes. Okay, that's fine for politics, but I mean, as someone who's, there's administrators and people managing the security of the White House, right? They don't give a fuck about the politics sides. They just want to do their job right. And I'm sure this has to have crossed their minds, right? Like, he first day in office, he should change all his passwords for unique 128 bits.
Hey, this is the guy that had a old phone.
Yeah, Samsung.
Forever. Like, it wasn't using a Samsung Galaxy S3 or something.
I'm using a Samsung Galaxy A3. 7 years old.
You're not the president of the United States.
Not yet.
If you could see what he looked like right now, it would be like 12 monkeys had happened, and then this was the person who was elected the president.
Yeah, even Trump looks better than Alistair at the moment.
Yeah.
My feelings are hurt. Yeah, I am looking extremely stylish to our listeners.
Yep. So the whole election thing, I don't know if anyone saw that there were these emails being sent out to Democrats saying basically vote Republican or we'll come to your house and hurt you.
And that's because everybody's data has been made available on the dark web, right? Well, not everyone, but a lot of people.
I don't think just the dark web. I think in the States that data is just public.
Yeah.
So it's free to access.
At the very least, you can probably buy it off something anyway. I mean, all that data is going to be available from somewhere.
Chipie, I think you're actually right. I think that people are selling it on the dark web. But I think though
I think it's like phone numbers and everything and locations as well.
Yeah. So people have been pretending to be like the Proud Boys and saying, yeah, we're going to come to your house unless you vote Trump, which is crazy. I mean, in the UK, how do we access that data? Is that available?
No,
it's not, is it?
No, but we have different laws here.
Like which party is going to vote for?
No, you just know that someone's registered to vote.
Yeah, but there's an advantage to having that data public because, in the US, they can like sponsor campaigns essentially and donate money and pay for ads, etc. And I mean, personally, I don't have anything against that, but I do think that if you're doing that, you should have, a public record of, these people or this organization, whatever, they paid, exactly these amounts into this campaign, right? So there is a benefit to having that kind of data public.
I was looking into this in comparison. Obviously, Saskia, you're going to know more about this than me, potentially, as it is your job more in the UK than the US. But unless you're a certain type of business or like a child under 12, then your data is basically commercially available. And it's got to the point where even the government has been buying that data commercially. So it's like a bit of a gray area, but because it's commercially available, the government can buy it and use it to track people, which I think is super sketchy, especially since all the fuss they kicked up about TikTok owning people's data and how they said, oh, it's privacy, and this is the reason we don't want to hear. But then they don't seem to have any consideration even in their own laws.
Well, that's because TikTok's Chinese, so they don't want China to have American data.
China is evil and USA is good. That's how it works.
But I mean, this isn't help people. Like, it's people like the IRS and it's border security. They're coming after people in quite a malicious way using this data. They're not protecting people.
No,
really.
And it's one of the reasons that US Privacy Shield, so EU-US Privacy Shield has become such an issue, and you now have to have these standard clause contracts in order to be able to transfer data between the EU and the US. The US has always been incredibly shonky on privacy. And there's been some stuff recently about Google where they've started handing information over to the police, apparently. So you don't even have to say, could you please give me information of the searches of this person who has been, who we suspect has been an arsonist. They will literally say, please, will you give us the personal details of everyone who's Googled about arson in between these dates?
Is this US specific or is this UK as well?
This is
US
specific. But a lot of America is very much a surveillance state, really. I think the Europeans have always been much more into the idea of privacy, whereas America talks so much about freedom, yet they're constantly being surveilled at all points.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a fairly recent thing, basically since the Patriot Act. That's when the whole data collection started. Because, before they did value privacy and freedom, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I remember I was at the airport once and everyone was being searched in America. And I said to the lady in front of me, this American lady, that this is like, what the hell's going on? That's ridiculous that they're doing that. And she said, yeah, but it's better than the alternative. So I guess in her mind, the alternative was, people blowing things up. Whereas for me, the alternative was just getting to where you're trying to get to without being strip searched.
Yeah, they basically sold out freedom for security.
Yeah. On a slightly nicer topic, did anyone see the GitHub stuff where they've added security scanning to their repos? I thought that was really
saw
cool.
That, and several tools as well.
Yeah. So apparently now with GitHub, if you've got an open repo, you basically get free security code scanning. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, they found I think since the beta of doing this, they scanned 12,000 repos and found 20,000 security issues or something, including remote command execution, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, like, some pretty important stuff. And they're finding that more developers are fixing those issues when they're reported as well. So yeah, really cool that they're allowing people to just to get this information for free.
It makes sense for their business model as well. I mean, I'm sure they already developed these tools for themselves, so they're already using it, for their own benefit. But by making it as like a service available to all their clients, it just gives one more reason to use GitHub instead of other services like it.
What we kind of need to do, I think, as an industry, we need to be pushing the tools and the abilities for security onto developers. The idea of this sort of, I wanted to use the word posthumous, but that means dead, doesn't it? I mean, not just
what word are you going for, Saskia?
So after the event, after the act, when you do something after the act has happened,
just post.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a word for it. But anyway, reactive security. So, sort of fixing in production or fixing fixing outside of development. It's expensive. Like I was actually on Twitter this week. Laughing Mantis has been incredibly helpful with some of the questions that I was asking about how much it actually costs to correct vulnerabilities. Lots of people who have given some feedback of how much it costs within their organizations, and it's so expensive. But that's never going to change if the response to security is do a pen test and then go in and fix the vulnerabilities if we find them. If you can be checking in the first instance rather than retrospectively. Retrospectively.
That is a word, yeah.
That's the word, not posthumously. Retrospectively. Fixing code, because of course at that point there's like all of these dependencies, and it's going to take so much longer. I think it was the only thing that I could find that was particularly useful is it's 30 times more expensive to fix a bug in production rather than development. But of course, a vulnerability is kind of like potentially a bug with balls, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Those figures might be different for vulnerabilities just because there is more risk or less risk. A database gets leaked doesn't mean the system goes down, and maybe it's the system being down that costs money. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I love seeing that more companies are releasing security tools for developers as opposed to just pen testers.
Talking of tools, did you see the stuff that CyberGibbons did this month about the male chastity?
Oh my god!
How you segue,
penis cage?
It was. That was the best segue. Why am I being the host? Saskia should do this.
That was fantastic. That was so smooth. I barely saw that coming.
Yeah.
You know what? I did a lot of AMAs for the InfoSec Hoppers where I got very good at a segue because I had a load of disjointed questions that I had to make into an interview.
Jay, just give her your topics and just let her write them, I think.
The word tool is applicable in so many ways in that story, though.
So many ways. So, yeah, it's like this smart Bluetooth male chastity lock, apparently, which is designed to give remote control access, and I love this bit, to a trusted third party. Because could you imagine if it was an untrusted third party and it uses a mobile app and API? So anyway, it turns out that the untrusted third party can be CyberGibbons, and they were able to take complete command of it. The best bit that I read was, according to TechCrunch, the advice from the manufacturer is that if one gets locked in, you should carefully use bolt cutters or a lateral grinder to release, which brings a whole new meaning to grinding on that dick.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Whoa.
Ali's face right now.
Do we need to censor this podcast now?
Saskia, was that a quote from an article or was that your thing?
My quote was, brings a whole new meaning to grinding on that.
I think March is dead. I think March died.
I thought that was pretty funny.
That was very good.
So apparently in the TLDR, multiple API flaws meant that literally anyone could remotely lock all devices and prevent users from releasing themselves.
Wow.
Oof.
And then removal would require this angle grinder or similar tool used in close proximity. And I love that. I love that here Pentest partners have written in their write-up to delicate and sensitive areas. And then precise user location data was also leaked by this API, including personal information and private chats. So the vendor initially...
How do these things talk to each other?
Presumably you talk to the third party who's locking your cock.
Through the app.
Through the app.
That makes sense.
So I'm assuming, having not used this myself, I'm assuming that the way that it goes is that you buy your cock lock and then you download the app, and then there's a sort of grinder-like thing that goes on where you find yourself a cock pal, and then the cock pal locks your cock, and then you have conversations with them about when you're allowed to be released.
Yeah, okay.
I assume. Apparently, it's the post is published in coordination with the Internet of Dongs.
Yeah, they do some kind of cool
There's
stuff.
so many questions I don't want answers to on this. I think I'm just going to let it die.
Yeah, that was a good story, and I learned a lot about the world by reading it.
Well, apparently,
what things are out there?
There's some more stuff coming up about butt plugs, so we can definitely save that for next week. We could have.
There's been plenty of research about butt plugs on the internet.
The whole sex tech thing generally has had a lot of work into it. I think Internet of Dongs reached out to us, Saskia, when we did the SimVR stuff.
They did, yes.
Yeah. The whole it's an interesting topic, and the problem is a lot of these devices are pretty low cost IoT devices. So you see the same vulnerabilities that you'll see in anything applicable here. So in this case, it was bad APIs. Anything that's using radio tends to be pretty vulnerable to radio attacks, replay attacks and things.
Yeah, but I mean, with the radio stuff, you can just, go away and fix it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the risks are different to an API leaking everyone's details and letting you take over the devices. But yeah, we're seeing the same attacks for everything.
Preventing everyone from releasing.
Very good. I would even suggest if people do want to get into security, these devices are going to be really good ones to practice on. So no, it's true. I'm not even making a joke, because they're going to be hardware-based things with APIs, devices that aren't particularly secure.
If you're going to practice on this one, though, you might want to use a carrot or something.
Yes. Let's. I'm not even going to segue this one. I'm just saying let's move on. I noticed that Marco Lancini released CloudSecDocs. Did anyone see that?
No.
Oh, okay. So I thought it was really cool. I mean, Marco, an old friend of mine.
Ours, you mean?
Yeah, we all know him.
Yeah.
Stop pretending you're a famous guy now.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm going to cut that bit out, so it's just I get the name drop. He released this set of technical notes and how-tos and cheat sheets and things. And actually, I got the text here. So CloudSecDocs is a website collecting technical notes, how-tos, cheat sheets related to cloud-native technologies, hand-curated by Marco. I think a really cool resource. I was taking a look through it. It's got loads of stuff about like Docker, containers generally, threats and risks, how to run them. So it's a really cool stuff. I took a look through, and I'm definitely going to be taking a look more. As someone that does some cloud security things, it's definitely going to be one of my go-to lists of resources. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is did anyone ever play AssaultCube?
No.
No, I didn't think anyone
another
did.
sex toy?
No, it's not. It's a first-person shooter, an open source FPS. I used to play this game tons when I was a kid. I don't know why. I just really, really liked it, and I got really good at it.
Really
it was like the only game. It's been around for a long time. It's the only game I've ever been good at. There is a vulnerability in it that allowed someone to execute code on the AssaultCube server. So if you're running the server, to play games with your friends and stuff, CE vulnerability. The write-up was amazing. So the guy, Elon Glitzberg, he did a write-up posted on Medium, and he went through looking at the code. Obviously, as I mentioned, it was open source. So he described his process of looking through it to find some of the vulnerabilities. The first one he found, he noticed that the devs used, I think it was an and rather than an or in one of the comparisons.
You know this, by the way, actually, okay. Jahmel, because I knew Cube, the original version.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that there was an original version.
Yeah. AssaultCube was a spin-off of the original engine, which was open source. Sorry, just cool. Minor.
Oh, I'm glad that other people have like played it, because it's nice that there is a open source game like this. But yeah, so there was he noticed that there was that they mixed up the and the or operation in one of the if statements, and because of that, it wasn't quite setting a value correctly. So he could put any value there. So from the client, he could send this value to the server. I think he used that to overflow the heap, which he used to overwrite one of the vtables, which he put, I think it was like the syslog address there. So when that function got called, it was called syslog, and it was using data that he could kind of inject into it. So he could inject like a vulnerable format string, get that to overwrite some other things, and eventually it leads to the system function being called with the arguments that he can control. So again, like a really awesome write-up with some videos in it to show how to, like some videos showing like the different steps of his exploitation. I would definitely recommend giving it a read if anyone's interested in some more of the tech stuff.
Yeah, I might check that out.
Yeah. But I don't think it's one that's going to get a lot of attention just because it's it's
an obscure game.
Exactly. But I also noticed today, and I've not had a chance to read through this properly, but F-Secure, they released a write-up of one of the vulnerabilities they had for for mobile pwn to own. So I think I do have that here. It said they exploited the Samsung S20. Exploit chain was found for specific version of the Galaxy Store application, which could allow an attacker to install any application on the Galaxy Store without user consent. It was then patched. It was then patched, no longer making a viable entry for pwn to own. So I guess it was patched before pwn to own. So they released their write-up. But yeah, this one looks really good as well. Lots of details. It looks fairly like basic Android-y type stuff, but will be a good read for anyone that either does a lot of Android work or is looking at how some of the weaknesses in Android can actually be applied in the real world.
That kind of leads to Facebook being dicks again. So they've now got a bug bounty loyalty program going on that is just dickish, really. So basically, bounty hunters will now be categorized into tiers, which will analyze their score and signal a number of bugs submitted to dedicate new bonus percentages. Thank you, Zach Whitaker. I'm literally reading this directly off your very, very interesting update that you sent to me on Sunday. So in effect, it's the more loyal you are about breaking the Facebook platform, the greater the rewards you will get. So they're basically trying to tether bounty hunters to being 0 hours contractor pen testers.
But that's what bug bountying has been for a long time. I've never been a fan of bug bountying for this precise reason.
But it's weird if a company is putting you in tiers to encourage you to attack
They're gamifying it.
Yeah.
They're giving you a Boots card.
Yeah, the loyalty part of it's really strange.
They are.
Yeah.
They're like, if you buy, don't just buy all of your prescription medications from Boots, buy your tampons from us as well, because the more you spend, the more you save.
That's exactly what it's like.
Good deal for everyone.
Same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it gets people looking for their platform longer than it would the competition, I guess for them it makes a lot of sense. And if someone doing bug bounties doesn't have to look at it, I guess it depends whether they're lowering the rewards at the lower tier. or whether they're artificially increasing the ones at the higher tiers.
I expect
I guess
probably lowering rather than
You think?
increasing. Well, wasn't there some issues that somebody presented a bug and they reduced it by like 10 times less than what they said they'd have paid for it?
I don't know. I've not heard any specific stories, but I wouldn't be
that story. It
surprised.
wasn't long
I
ago.
remember it. I remember that. I
Okay.
can't remember the exact details, but it was something like that. All right, yeah. It
Yeah,
was supposed to
and
be like a £2,000 payout or something, and they gave him 200 quid or something.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
something really crappy like that. So, I mean, I assume what it does is actually puts more power into Facebook, into their hands, and kind of strips power away from the bounty hunters more. Because now it's like you could potentially submit a really high risk phone. Like you could submit a critical, and they'd be like, "You're only in tier 1. That'll be £2.50."
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. It depends whether they're lowering or hiring. It would really be a shame if they're just lowering the lower tiers. But yeah, I mean, lots of companies don't get bug bounties right, and then lots of people also don't get it right.
Because they're a fundamentally flawed idea.
I don't know if they're flawed. They have their place, but yeah, I had a customer come to us recently and say, "We've just got this email from this random person," and I read it, and it said, "We found. I'm an ethical hacker, and I found a security weakness. I noticed that some nonsense
DKIM or something?
Yes. Then they asked for some money for reporting the vulnerability. Of course, I mean, the vulnerability itself was not really worthwhile. It's clear that even though, you can spoof an email address, it was being sent to spam anyway, and it's likely that the person who was emailing it in with the evidence screenshots just removed it from spam to put it in their own inbox to say that, oh, look, someone can spoof your email address, trying to scare an organization into paying for the bounty. And since then, I've seen a lot of people have received similar emails, all very similar wording.
There are some quite big payouts, though, aren't there? Like
there can be if it's done right. Yeah.
Something about, was it Apple products that there was quite a big payout this week?
So Apple do good payouts, but the most recent thing, there's been a lot of criticism for not paying enough. I think there was a group of people found, I want to say like 55 vulnerabilities in total, and were paid a few $100,000. I mean, a decent amount, but
if people want to get paid more, they should sell them to private exploit brokers instead.
So that's what I was going to say. I mean, nobody's forcing you to do bug bounties for Facebook. If they don't pay well, or that you don't like the tiering system, you can just do something else. Bug bounty for someone else, or just find issues in Facebook and sell it to someone else.
Yeah. I mean, but that's why I do think bug bounties can be a useful tool, because
you can sell them to other people. The exploits to other people.
Because you can sell them to the organization, even if you're not getting as much. There is the ethics part of it as well. Not everyone wants to sell to some shady third party. Some people would rather.
An exploit broker doesn't have to be shady. There are plenty of legitimate ones that.
Well, yeah, but some people would still rather see the thing get fixed than it being like used and exploited. So I definitely think that there is benefits to bug bounties. But yeah, the Apple one recently, they do need to try and figure out how much they're paying, and they need to make it something that is reasonable. Else people will just go to third parties,
which they should do. It doesn't even matter how much they pay you guys. Sell all your exploits. Don't ever get anything fixed. Don't sign up to a life of playing whack-a-mole with bugs. Make money.
Do you remember how easy it used to be to hack things? I think the reason why it's not as easy is because people
it's
aren't
still
following
easy.
your advice. It's not as easy as it was. I mean, it used to be that you could accidentally hack into a network if you're looking at their Wi-Fi. Like it was bad. Now I think there needs to be some thought involved or some effort. I remember when the web browser, when it had a invalid certificate, it was super easy to just click through that. Whereas now you've got to click like, yes, I understand the risks. I agree.
That annoys me much.
Yeah, but do you remember how easy it used to be?
Which is how it should have been.
Yeah, but that has definitely made things more secure for people.
I think this is a good segue for you to introduce that topic about Chrome banning the URL bar, essentially.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if people saw this one.
Oh, I've been watching this for a while.
Okay. It seems to be a like a change that some people are pushing, and they've been pushing it for a long time, but where Chrome has removed the full URLs in the browser. So I think it was the most recent version of Chrome.
So-
I hate it.
They talked about doing this about two years ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of an
Well,
outcry.
they
And-
did start doing it like 2 years ago because
Mm,
they don't show you the HTTP or HTTPS protocol
Yeah.
scheme and column / and www. They just remove all of that.
Yeah.
Mm.
This is why I use Edge, Microsoft Edge, as my browser. And I should recommend that everyone else uses Microsoft Edge as their browser.
So I tried to switch over, but I'm still not. I
Yeah,
still
that's
haven't.
not going to happen for me.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's I understand why they're doing it, right? They're trying to make it easier to spot phishing attempts. You know, if you've got a URL, 200 characters, like with the full path and everything, it can be difficult to tell whether it's a phishing site
it's
or not.
I mean,
No, it's not.
even
I
if-
don't
I don't care how big the URL is. I mean, it already defaults into the host name, the domain name. So you're already looking at it starts at where things matter. So why are you getting distracted about all the URL parameters coming after it?
You're saying that as someone that understands technology and understands how
I understand
everything
technology,
works.
and I want to see the full URL of what I'm browsing. I mean, I don't think I'm asking too
Right.
much. I mean, I just want to know what I'm browsing. I mean, it's not too much to ask.
I think you can turn it off and always see the
Yeah,
URL
well,
as well.
I'd rather be angry at the change.
hoping for
You'd
that.
rather be
I'm
angry,
hoping
okay.
I
for
would
that,
rather be angry.
But there's no option for you to change the HTTP : / www dot thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, maybe there's like a flag that I need to find, but it's not in the settings. Hey, how can we be pen testers if we're not angry at everything?
Exactly.
I'm furious all the time.
You can't hack cheerfully.
Yeah.
That's not an option.
Imagine hacking with a smile on your face.
On to our next topic. On behalf of our sponsors, Microsoft.
It's just really trying to get the free stuff, aren't you?
Oh, one day. So yeah, I guess the main thing I wanted to talk about today is the Windows XP leak.
and Server
I guess-
2003.
Yeah. And I guess we all heard about that, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Ronan
Kinda-
Day who actually confirmed it?
I'm not sure.
I
because
found lots of people who confirmed that.
So it came out on 4chan first.
Yeah,
so
it's-
somebody posted.
It's likely that it was part of a dump that was to do with like gaming data. Someone ages ago basically hacked a bunch of companies and like Nintendo and stuff, and they put a load of like data on shared stuff in like a small group, and then eventually it got out and ended up on 4chan, and Microsoft's stuff was inside the Nintendo stuff, if I recall, or inside the overall leak.
Okay, so what was the Nintendo stuff that
Like
got
source
hacked?
code for Pokemon and dozens of other games.
Oh, has that been released or is it still?
Yeah, that came out 6 months ago.
Oh, okay. I've either forgotten about it or
It
didn't
wasn't.
see
It wasn't actually widely covered in the news because no one really cares about games, right? It was a fairly niche thing.
Okay, interesting. So the source code leak you think was part of that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw. So I've not looked at the code myself. I probably won't, to be honest, because there are a lot of implications, right? Like this has happened in the past. There's been Windows code leak. I think it was Windows 2000 happened in the past, if I remember correctly. And I was a software engineer at the time, so I thought that reading it could potentially influence my code and breaking IP laws and things like that, which I think is a kind of an interesting take. This code is 20 years old. There are open source software that is trying to replicate it in a black box style, and now we have people reading this code and potentially trying to introduce that to these projects,
Which they should
like
not do because that will get you
shouldn't do.
fired from those projects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it puts those projects at risk. So React OS has been around for how long?
At least 15 years.
A long time. And like if someone goes and
Sticks
adds
Windows
stuff
code
to
in.
it,
Yeah.
which would be a real shame. Saying that, I love the idea of an open source version of XP.
Do you think more leaks will lead to more open source stuff from Microsoft, or do you think
No.
no?
I don't think so.
I
I
actually
think they'll just carry on with the leaks.
no. I think people shouldn't leak them at all. I think people should not leak the source code for stuff like this. I think we should be petitioning companies to open source their code after a certain amount of time. I think that should be a
I
legal
agree.
requirement because I don't know if you guys know, but I was involved, or I am involved in a sort of a side project, which I call digital necromancy, which is me reaching out to companies that have like source code or that might have ended up owning source code of, historical value. Like some of the early, I think, was it Cray operating systems or CDC ended up owned by BT of all people. And I firmly believe that companies should release these. And that's what I've basically been trying to do, get them to, contact the right people, find out someone in an organization, get them to release this code. And leaks just, I don't know, they smirch the good name of that
They sort of
kind work.
undermine what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because when it's open source, it can be used. If it's a leak, it can't be, at least legitimately.
Yeah.
Aren't there some security issues to this?
Well,
It will be.
now that it's open source, now that it's open,
That is leaked.
it's been leaked, people can use it to start looking for vulnerabilities. Now, there are going to be vulnerabilities in things like XP and Windows 2003.
I believe Windows Embedded was included in that as well. So there will be embedded devices that will be vulnerable.
No, XP also runs large medical devices. There's point of sales and automated telling systems, set-top boxes as well. All of this stuff that notoriously doesn't get upgraded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, security issues in XP have been a problem for a long time, and they will be. But now we might see, more critical ones that haven't been fixed.
Worth commenting that the source code that got released is not the actual production XP source code, by the way. It's some kind of development version. So there may be vulnerabilities in that don't exist in the production version or vice versa. And similarly, the ATM versions maybe, will have different stuff as well. So it's not like a master key that opens the door to everyone.
There was some really wacky stuff in there, wasn't there? Like there was some code that makes Windows look like Apple operating system.
Yeah.
And then there was something that unlocks GIFs and puts additional colors in like Paint. Like some
interesting.
really
I know
random stuff.
There was in the torrent or in the release there was some Bill Gates conspiracy theory videos.
That's because it was repackaged by someone from 4chan. That's not in the original.
And they added it in. Okay. So that was okay. But yeah, I do wonder whether we will see an open source. Well, maybe not open source, but a new version of XP that comes out with fixes for more recent hardware, more support for more because XP, I think it's only 32-bit, right?
Yep.
No, I think the first 64-bit was Vista.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I thought it was 7. I thought Vista was 32-bit.
No, there's definitely a 64-bit for Vista. Yeah. I'm not sure if there isn't one for XP, but I think now.
I can't remember. It was so long ago.
I remember it because it was right when 64-bit CPUs started coming out, and people were forced to use Vista, and nobody wanted, if they wanted to make the most out of their CPUs at least.
And RAM.
Nobody wants to upgrade to anything though. It's like the minute anything changes on any operating system, it's like, what fresh hell is this?
Well, hang on.
Okay,
No, wait.
There is a 64-bit XP. I'm looking at.
I suspect.
But I was just going to comment that I disagree, Saskia. I'm using Windows 10 right now, and it's a massive improvement over all previous Windows versions.
It looked like Windows 10.
Stylish, smooth, performing well.
I would argue that March looks like KDE.
Wow.
Wow, that was a burn to two things. Very good.
I am actually personally offended.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's really interesting that that more people are now going to be working on the code. I've seen people compiling the Windows 2003 server version.
That's the only thing that compiles in that.
Yeah, XP isn't complete, right? There are some components missing.
Yeah, including I think WinLogon of all things. It's definitely broken. I haven't paid that much attention myself because I don't want to look at the source code, because you never know. I might one day want to contribute to, say, React or Wine or something like that, and I don't want to, screw up my chances.
Why would that screw up your chances?
Because if you look at any of this code, you're introducing massive legal liabilities to these organizations, because Microsoft can then turn around and sue them straight up.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't know.
So let's say, for example, Ali decided to fix a bug in React OS, which is an open source implementation of Windows. He might inadvertently just be like, I'll code it this way, forgetting that the reason he's doing that is because he read it in the source code.
Because it becomes criminal after that point. You think it's a fresh idea, but actually it's because you're remembering something you've seen, but without remembering it.
Yeah. So React OS at the moment, and Wine as well, they do this like black box implementation. So they figure out what they want it to do based on what Windows is doing.
It's a full clean room thing, I think. Even people who reverse engineer some of the functions can't be the people who write the code. They have to describe it to the people who write the code.
I was reading about that. It's interesting.
It is a really cool process, but because there is so much risk if they end up copying what's going on. So yeah, it could have a lot of impact on those projects, because there are definitely going to be people out there that don't care, and they're going to try and introduce some stuff. So these open source projects are going to have to be really, really careful about who they now let.
Yeah, but I mean, how can they do that if it's open source and I'm, issuing a pull request? How do they know, that I'm not copying it from the original?
They'll have stuff like it'll be verified. There will be people looking over your code.
How can they verify it
They'll
without
only be
looking at the original code?
I assume that's because they'll have people who will have reverse engineered it, who will look at it and see that the similarities are the same that way. Like if there's a certain control flow and stuff like that, you'll be able to identify it from just purely reverse engineering some Windows stuff.
Yeah, I guess they could have a team that has looked at the code that doesn't work on the functionality
That's also
compares.
True,
yeah. So, but this is more cost, and React OS isn't even version 1 yet, if I remember correctly.
No, it's not. It's like version 0.9 or something, or 0.8.
Yeah. So, more time, more cost, which is, again, a real shame, because what they're doing is really cool. But yeah, it would be nice to see somebody release a version of XP with some fixes.
Would it though? I mean, would you use that? Would you actually use that?
I would, for some things. There are still random bits of hardware that require older versions of Windows. Gaming as well, to play some old legacy games.
What's stopping you from using regular Windows to do that?
Well, number one, I'd have to find a license or buy a license.
No, what he said, buy a license.
buy a license. Whereas someone could release a version of XP that doesn't require a license.
But then that would be theft from Microsoft of all people. Shame on you.
I'm just talking hypothetically, hypothetical situations.
So, in terms of security fixes, I think we will see something like that in about 5-10 years. Are you guys familiar with OS2?
Yeah.
You are. Okay. So OS2 has now got, and has for the last couple of years, a third-party company that is actually providing updated versions of OS2. IBM and Microsoft, I guess, gave them the license to do this. So I think we will probably see that with XP eventually. I think that's cool. I think that's the way it should work in that sense.
Because there are still people that do need it, despite what we think insecurity.
Oh yeah, I know people still need it.
Yeah, still random bits of hardware. As Saskia mentioned, like medical devices.
So that's the main thing, is hospitals.
SCADA stuff still uses Windows CE, for example. There's all kinds of stuff.
We're seeing ATMs as well use XP. Quite a few
ATMs do, but there's quite a lot of. It specifically tends to be around things like when you have body scans done. What's it?
MRI.
Yeah, MRI scans and some heart monitoring devices.
Wow.
But
some of these things use like
them.
old Solaris versions as well. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, I know these are going to be a lot of honeypots, but I've just looked at Shodan looking for Windows XP, and there are machines claiming to be Windows XP.
Well, there will be. There's still a lot of XP.
Internet.
I want to say it's like 11% of browsers are still XP, for God's sake. There's going to be a lot of XP embedded devices and things attached to the internet.
I think I have family members who are still on XP. I shit you not. I think with it became an issue with WannaCry because a lot of the unpatched stuff was XP dependent. And then there was this whole conversation going on around the fact that there was all of this legacy medical hardware that you couldn't update the operating system on. So it had to be XP. That was all you could have. So there was a lot of shame sort of pushed onto hospitals saying that they needed to isolate them from the network and all of this kind of stuff. But the funding for IT support in the NHS isn't great. And that's when they started to change how they dealt with the toolkit. So what you used to have was an IG toolkit, which was information governance toolkit. And then they changed that to be a specific security toolkit to try and make sure that the equipment that was running off this kind of software was isolated in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, two things about that. First of all, regardless of budgets, they should, they should know what they what they are working with, and basically design their network around that. The second thing is that if those devices can't be updated, I'm not sure how much of that is Microsoft's fault and how much of that is the manufacturer's fault.
It's usually the manufacturers. So there'll be manufacturers that have built this software and then have gone out of business, for example. So will be no updates, and the software will only run on XP.
Exactly.
It's a really complicated ecosystem. And again, like some of these scanners are running old versions of like Solaris or SEO Unix.
Absolutely.
Even.
And you're right. I'm just saying, when you're purchasing this equipment, very expensive equipment, this is, should be, one of the thousands of considerations you should make would be, how is this thing going to get supported? What happens if, like you said, the manufacturer goes bankrupt or, doesn't want to support anymore? What's my, do I have a fallback plan? Can I resell this? How can I keep this in my hospital without being on the network, whatever? So these are all, it's not, all I'm saying is it's not only Microsoft's fault. There's a lot of,
it's not Microsoft's fault at all.
There's a lot of responsibility involved, a lot of, organizations and people involved, and literally everyone has responsibility for this.
I think that's a good point, but then I think you also have to say what's the responsibility of the provider when they allow operating systems to become end of life or go obsolete. Do they have a responsibility to keep things going for 20 years? Do they not?
Yeah.
If there are things dependent on them, Microsoft isn't short of a bob or two. They can probably afford to keep things going. It kind of feels like they're pushing people off operating systems for their own.
That's one of the points, isn't it? They are trying to push people off.
Yes and no, though. I mean, they maybe with Windows 8 and 8.1, you didn't get much of a head start, like a heads up. But I mean, who the hell uses that anyway? But for Windows XP, they did, make this warn people years in advance, 5 years
and
from
they
now.
Even pushed
they even gave people the option to pay for like long-term support and stuff.
I feel like they did everything they can. I don't think they should be required to respond.
If we put ourselves in the company's shoes, right? If you can't stop supporting something and move on, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to be a hostage of that software forever,
But that's why I think March is right when he said, they should be forced to open source after a certain period. I love that idea. Like if you're not going to support it,
either pass it on to someone who will, like the case in OS2, or open source it and let people do it. And it's not like, XP isn't, it's not going to be bringing in a lot of finances to Microsoft right now. So there's no real reason for them to not do it. But then I suppose the argument they have would be, do they know who owns all of the components legally? You know, maybe not all of that code is Microsoft, right? It could be done. Some of it could be third-party providers. That's a whole mess that I had to deal with, and has been a thorn in my side, because it turns out that a lot of companies don't really know whether they own the whole source code or what. And then there's also the possibility that someone could, I don't know, make a competitor product using it too, right? So people are worried about that. I think oddly, Apple do a really good job and have a really good model with that, where what is it? Is the XNU, I think it's called? Darwin.
With the kernel.
Yeah, the Darwin, basically the bare bones like OS is all public for Mac OS, and that is a fantastic system. Like you can look back through that, you can see how it developed, and that's the way all companies should work, I think, as a default.
There's a lot of things that Apple does, towards open source stuff that just goes under the radar.
Yeah, I agree, but there's a lot of stuff that Microsoft does.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm I'm trying to protect Microsoft here. But yeah.
Yes, we should all protect Microsoft.
Yes, I love Microsoft.
Microsoft is love. Microsoft is life.
Why are we all in love with Microsoft all of a sudden?
I don't think we all are. I think those two are.
Well, I mean, I'm with them. Windows 10 is amazing.
Yeah, this is the best operating system I've ever used, and I say that unironically.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I prefer Apple.
No.
Oh, well, I mean, you're wrong.
Yeah. I have a question that will potentially annoy the Windows lovers. This is just my question as a non-security person, should they really, like a company as big as Windows, be relying on like the secrecy of code in terms of security? So when it's leaked.
So I don't think Microsoft.
Yeah, I don't think Microsoft relies on the obscurity for security.
No, but what I mean is like
IP and monetary / legal issues.
But in terms of like saying all those vulnerabilities are being exposed now, like should that really be a big deal?
Well, I don't think there's that many vulnerabilities exposed yet. There will be some found.
Yeah, and keep in mind the software is 20 years old. Software was developed differently back then. So whilst they shouldn't rely on the secrecy of the secrecy of software, security through obscurity, it does work in some situations. So what I imagine we'll start seeing is someone putting together a fuzzer for Windows 2003, because that could be compiled, but if it shares code with XP, but a fuzzer in the way that they couldn't have done before because they didn't have the code. So there's going to be different ways to look for those vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you'll be able to see what's going on with the flow of the like control flow and things now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's. Go on.
I was just going to say, but does having code, like obviously you're a big fan of open source too, and Microsoft, so you might have to choose a favorite here, but like does having things being forced to be open source, does that encourage more secure code?
Oh God, no. Jesus, no.
No.
No, not at all.
But even for a company as big as Microsoft, if they were making their
I'm kind of with Chipie on what she's implying here. So like more eyes.
But that doesn't really work. That's a silly phrase that doesn't apply.
I think it does.
I'm coming at this with no prior knowledge of it, so I'm just asking an outsider question. So I may have irritated everyone here.
It can be easier to identify. It is easier to identify vulns if there is open source code and code that you can read.
Come on.
Yeah, but no one really actually does a lot of work in terms of that.
No. So I think,
and I don't think it changes coding practices.
I don't
either.
think we need to be like these two extremes. Like it's not like open source will not fix everything magically, but because I'm with March here. It's a myth that just because it's open source now everybody's reading it. No, that's not how it works. But what does work though is that you are going to have people anyway. They're going to be researching into Windows. And they're going to be looking at it, even if it's not open source. If it is open source, you're just making their life easier. So the bar is much lower to get into, finding vulns essentially. And also for the higher vulns, the skilled people, instead of wasting their lives and nights trying to find vulns and reverse engineer, useless things, they can really focus on the important stuff. So I don't think it's like so black and white.
And also,
so what would the middle ground be there?
Well, bear in mind that also open source often means unfinished. So there are many.
What do you mean by
everything is always unfinished? The world is unfinished.
If you look at like one of the biggest open source communities for security, OWASP, they have multiple projects going on at any time, and the ideas behind them are amazing. They're absolutely brilliant, but a lot of the time, because it's based on community contribution,
None of it works.
That's because this doesn't count because OWASP is a security thing, and the security industry is notoriously bad at coding and finishing
Both
projects.
of you have
Well,
valid
And
points.
B,
on the coding,
just
definitely.
I guess it depends what you mean by unfinished, right?
But OWASP isn't just security people. It's a security
mostly.
community, but it's not just
But
security people.
if we take XP, for example, I mean, XP it is unfinished. You know, they released updates. They released Service Pack 1, 2, and was there a Service Pack 3, if I remember? Yeah, I think there was, right?
Yes, there was.
Yeah. So they released, all these things because it wasn't finished. So it is kind of hard to compare them. It's not like, it's not open source, therefore you only release
If I may,
finished.
just to finish on Chipie's question about what is the middle ground. I mean, obviously, I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you, mathematically, this is the middle ground. But
What's the ideal solution? I think is what I'm saying.
I'm very close to what March was defending earlier. Like companies should be encouraged to make their code open source, especially if they're not supporting it anymore, or, after 15, 20 years, whatever. But it's definitely if they're not planning to support it anymore, they're not monetizing it anymore, then I think they should be encouraged to make it open source. Like most things between me and March, we agree on almost everything. I'm just going to differ on a very fundamental thing, which is I would never make it like a regulation. So I would never force anyone to disclose it. That's it. But I think they should be encouraged for that. And I think we as a community we do have the power to make that change.
I just want to dial back on that slightly. Are you actually for regulation, March?
Well, I'm always for regulation.
There you go. He's the weirdest anarchist I've ever met. Like he wants all that government power. Tasty.
A regulation.
The only thing that's predictable about March is how unpredictable he is.
That's true.
Well, it's a middle ground, right? I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, they would release the code themselves, and we wouldn't have like some centralized government.
So why are we not striving for ideal?
Because ideal, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we can still make a move, and we can still, you said it yourself.
But let's start with small steps. Let's start with small steps. Let's do good within the system we have.
How to telling people how to run their business and how to manage their IP is not, starting small. It's a fairly big hammer. It's like, we have this little problem. Let me get this giant hammer and hammer some regulation into it.
That's the way it should be. Big hammers solve everything. If I had a big hammer right now, I'd be wielding it. But also, I think that without regulation, no company will ever open source their code.
That's not true, man. I mean, you said it yourself. Like Apple has, well, it's not even Apple, but whatever. Their Darwin is an XNU is open source, and
but that's a very unique situation. And Apple have a weird culture. You can't use, one example as to set the whole thing.
They barely have any motivation to do that. Like nobody knows about that. Most people don't know about that. Nobody, sing them praises. There's no incentives for them, and they still do it. Imagine
I sing their praises.
Well, yes, but you are nobody. But imagine if people there's a whole community of tech people, software developers, security experts, whatever, pushing for open source and asking companies, hey, just maybe companies don't do it because they don't think there's an interest. Have you thought about that?
But I've been trying to do this. Trust me.
You're one person. Let's get a voice, and we don't need much.
I mean, I count for 2,000 people. I'm more than one person. I'm much better than one person.
That's a good point, Jahmel. Games industry is a perfect example.
Let me say the point then.
Excellent
you
point,
can isolate
Jahmel.
your voice.
Excellent point, Jahmel. I totally agree.
It's just that I already know what your point is. But go ahead.
Of course you do. In the games industry, my God, in the games industry, this tends to be a bigger thing, right? Where they do. There are teams of people or groups of people that are trying to get access to the code and encouraging companies to release it, and often it works, but mostly for the really, really retro games where we are at risk of losing them forever.
Yeah. But I mean, I would love if more people wanted to help me out in this project.
It's a complex thing, also with games, because with games, maybe they don't support it anymore, but they don't know if 10 years from now they're not going to release a remake, so they might still need the code. So there's that. There's also like middle ground options, like for Blizzard, for example. People, they didn't like the expansions of WoW, and they wanted to play vanilla WoW. And there were basically pirate servers doing that. So what Blizzard did was, okay, we're not going to release the server code for the vanilla version of WoW, because probably current WoW still uses a lot of that, but we are going to give the option to host only like vanilla only WoW servers. So even if you don't get the open source, you might still get like middle ground solutions. This is a specific example for games, but we can have these things for all kinds of software as well.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Yeah, I mean,
to bring it back to the XP thing, then. So I know that some people have been looking for like interesting files inside the leaks, and there's been obviously a few things, interesting comments. Lots of swearing. One picture of a lady that wasn't wearing many clothes. Yeah, I know. Some like comic book things.
Has all of this been verified? Because like Mark was saying, this went through 4chan, so...
Yeah, so it's hard to tell how much of that is part of the very original leak, because the leak that got put on 4chan is not the original leak. That was shared in a small group. That, as far as I'm aware, I don't know anything about this at all, other than rumors and whispers. But yeah, I would be wary of at least some of the stuff in that leak that it may not be originally from, or it may have been part of a different dump related to Microsoft. Whoever it was allegedly inside Microsoft for quite some time. So.
And this goes back to the conversation that we were having last week, not last week, but last podcast. That hacking is highly politicized. That to think there isn't a political agenda around any of these things is
everything's politicized nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah. So
are we saying that the Microsoft leak is politicized?
We're saying that there's the opportunity to politicize it.
Oh, well,
adding in those conspiracy theory videos. That's something. Okay, cool. Has anyone got anything else to say?
I guess I just wanted to say that I don't know, it's gone. Great, thanks. I had something important to add about the Server 2003 thing, but now it's gone.
Record it separately and send it to me.
I might well do that. Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be like a final plug for Windows at the end. There.
No. It was.
Hire me, please. Is that what you put? Are you trying to be like
Microsoft, please hire me.
They have Microsoft advocates, and like literally all their job is to go around conferences and talk about how amazing Microsoft is.
Well, I think you'll find that it is amazing.
They do have Microsoft evangelists. That's
what
they
is it
call
an evangelist? Them. Sorry, not an advocate.
Yes.
Oh, I hate that.
I'm not making this up. This actually exists.
No, literally.
Imagine.
I know 2 of them.
Imagine being paid to go on a podcast with 10 listeners and talking about Microsoft.
Yeah,
how much
it would be wild. I'm glad
I'd listen to that.
Okay. Okay. So I think that's probably it for this episode. Has anyone got anything they want to plug before we wrap things up?
Oh my God! Finally, it's come back to me.
Okay.
Jesus.
So
I was
we're
going
not
to
finishing
say,
yet.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that it is going to be interesting to see if anyone does anything with AD, or if anyone reverse engineers is like Active Directory or something like that as a result of this. That will be what I'm really interested to see.
Oh, that's a good point. I never really thought about that, but I guess the Samba projects are going to have the same issues where maybe people would, struggling to verify code and things.
Yeah, we might even have a spin-off AD-like projects now that could compete, which is going to be interesting because AD is the real reason why Windows is used in corporate environments, right? Let's be honest.
True.
AD and Microsoft Excel. And I am interested to see what happens with that in particular.
Yeah, good point. Really good point.
Just want to say that you can have Microsoft Excel via the web, So it's not an excuse anymore.
Well, I buy Microsoft Excel, and I think you should as well, because Microsoft is such a great company that you should contribute.
I do buy. I have a completely legal license of Office.
So do I.
And you've got a Surface?
And I've got a Surface and an Xbox and another Xbox in the mail.
I might buy about 6 Xboxes this week.
Can I do a plug?
Today's edition of Securosaurus was brought to you by the new tool Rex by Digital Interruption. Rex will
That sounds more like a sponsor than a
Rex
plug.
will scan all of your Android vulnerabilities. Use Rex. Please, for the love of God, use Rex. We don't have enough testers for Rex, and the licenses are currently free. Use Rex. Rex is
Oh, I didn't know that. Licenses are free. I want one.
I'd like a license.
Oh, you guys are giving me work.
I will
How
say,
hard is it
Yeah.
to issue a license? It should be
It's so
press a
easy.
button.
I'm just being lazy.
Like
Oh,
literally
okay.
anyone,
Cool.
please, for the love of God, test this tool.
Okay, so Rex, for people, anyone listening, Rex is a Android vulnerability scanner that we're developing, Android application vulnerability scanner. So if anyone wants a free license, so we can get some user feedback, drop one of us a message. It would be useful for us, and you can get some swag and some input into the project.
It's actually a really, really cool tool, but we do want to extend out the amount of people using it and get like a little bit more information about how people are using it. It's so cool that Innovate UK have funded us to do some testing on it and some extra development.
Very
Should
cool.
we disclaim that you guys own Rex?
No, that's fine.
I just also want to quickly plug that as if anyone is interested, any of our all 7 listeners, if you're interested, or if you work at a company that you know owns any rights to any interesting source code, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter thing is twitter.com/_TA0. Please hit me up about that, because I would love to actually have some wins in that area.
Awesome. I guess I will plug Grey Hats generally. So Grey Hats, Manchester Grey Hats, a group of a community group where we get together. We do things like this podcast. We compete in CTFs. We run CTFs. We normally run workshops. COVID has changed things up a little bit, so we're going to see what we're going to do with that. I will also plug a new project that me and Jose are starting together. We are.
Boy, this is real now.
Now this name is awesome. We are the Cyber Senpais.
I helped with that.
Yep, we're going to be releasing.
I didn't help with that. I just want to make this clear.
Basically, we want to release some, videos to help people understand cybersecurity. So, videos learning the types of things that we do, like how to hack web applications. We're still trying to figure out exactly what it is, but this is a new, as I said, a new project that we're working on.
But guys.
Yeah.
Name for the podcast: Securosaurus.
We're Grey Hats podcast.
Securosaurus.
The March show.
Securosaurus.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Grey Hats podcast. I've already put the details into anchor.fm.
But you can't change things. I thought you were a hacker.
No,
But he doesn't need it. He just needs to click
You
edit.
know what?
and
He's
that's
been
it.
hiding.
no, it's impossible.
He's been hiding behind me for years, just saying he's a
Of
hacker.
course.
But we all know I do it.
Yeah. We all saw the video on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll also be doing some live streams on Twitch. Maybe going through some capture the flags, or other security research bits and pieces. So we're on Twitter. Follow us there to get updates as and when we put them out. Anyone else want to plug
Do you want
any
me to plug?
projects?
Do you want me to plug Cyber Senpai properly, or maybe get like Jose to do it with his silky voice?
No. Saskia definitely should do it. I just want to say that, even though you're plugging it, we literally have 0 content on anything
Okay.
right now.
We have one video.
We have one video.
Yeah.
What? Your video?
Yeah, I put that onto the Cyber Senpai's YouTube channel.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
I think it's a good first video.
Yeah, that should be the channel trailer, when you open the channel.
I can plug it with my best high-pitched anime girl voice. And
Go on, do it.
Japanese. No, I'm not going to do it. No, I was lying.
Well, I mean that's the plan, right? We're gonna have
We should hire March to do the voiceovers.
yeah. I've always wanted to have
silky smooth voice. Just,
anime girls come up to me and be like, "Notice me, senpai," So that's where
That's
this name
literally
came
your
from.
life. Is
Notice me, senpai.
notice me
Please
now.
don't
Exactly.
edit this out.
No, don't
This
leave
is,
this
this
in.
is
This is
definitely coming out.
fantastic.
No, this is coming out. This is coming out. Okay. Anyone got anything else they wanna add?
And
is a
also
perfect-
Microsoft. Microsoft will bring you the next podcast.
Yes.
Man. that
Okay.
would be
Thank you,
awesome.
everyone. Bye.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.